You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time. And we all have a busy schedule. So the fact that you're listening to this podcast it makes me happy. There's so many podcasts out there, Ryan. So many.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah. COVID hit and every celebrity decided to get a podcast.
You had it first. We all know.
Yeah. At least my loyal listeners have stuck by me, and I appreciate that. My lovely patrons keep the show going. Patreon.com/Inside if you want to become a patron. There's tons of perks. I send you boxes of merch and little notes, and there's tons of stuff. And go to the Inside of You online store if you like and get some cool merch, some Smallville stuff. There's Ship keys signed, Lexmas script signed, all that. But more importantly, Ryan's breaking shit. But the Inside of You, our handles, Ryan, what are they?
At Inside of You Pod on Twitter, at Inside of You Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
That's right. So please support the podcast. Write a review. Subscribe. These things are really important to keep the podcast going. If you're here for Jim Gaffigan, hopefully you'll like it enough to give it us another shot. It's more about talking to people, real conversations, and understanding human nature, mental health, all that, along with career and just real stuff. We try to keep it real here on this podcast. So also just a reminder that Tom and I will be doing a lot of cons this year as of now. So make sure you look at our schedule or keep track at the Michael Rosenbaum on Instagram and at Michael Rosenbaum on Twitter, because we'll be posting about different things. We have Atlanta, March 4th and 5th. We're doing a Smallville night. So if you're near Atlanta, you want to come see the show and some autographs and pictures and have a great time with us, we'd love to have you. And my band, Sunspin. Go to sunspin.com for merch. Also, Sunspin on Spotify or anywhere you hear your music. Our new album, Never Is What It Is out there. We're really proud of it. Hopefully you'll give it a listen. I really think you're going to like it. So let me know what you think. And we do a lot of performances at Stage It. So there's that, Ryan. What are you doing?
You're busy. Here.
You're here.
Did a lot of podcasts this week, both of them.
Yeah, doing the Talkville podcast, doing this podcast. It's it's funny. There's a couple of my celebrity friends that are actually calling me about like, hey, could maybe we do a podcast under your umbrella? Like, like maybe I know you know a lot about it. I'm like, I'll talk to Bryce about that stuff. I was thinking about it. It'd be kind of cool if we sort of like started producing other podcasts on the side, hiring different people to do those things, and just, help them sort of navigate and what you're supposed to do, what you can do, how you can get people to listen, and, what makes it appealing, and the equipment you need and the commitment you need. I think the number one thing people don't realize is the commitment. Mm-hmm. You're making a commitment not only to this project, but to your listeners. You can't just go, oh, I'll do it when I feel like it. No, they'll go away. Mm-hmm. They want somebody they can hear every week that might give them a little insight into something, and or have good conversations. So I think that they don't realize there's a lot of work that goes with it. A lot of these actors are like, I'm doing a movie and this, and I'm gonna do a little podcast on the side. Well, you better commit to it, because listeners will not stick around if you don't. So there you go. Great guest today. I know you love this guy. I like him. He's a great guy. He's a great conversation, great storyteller, great comedian. He's had a lot of specials. He's got this new movie, Linoleum, which I thought was really cool. And, I said this in the interview to him, but there's something really interesting about him as a character. And when I watched him play this role, Cameron, from this movie, Linoleum, I was like really impressed. Like this is, I could definitely see him. I wouldn't be shocked if they're like, a nomination for Academy Award. Sometime down the line, because I think he has that ability and passion. He does a lot of things, and I think you're going to really enjoy this one. And we talk about everything. So get your pants on. Let's get inside of Jim Gaffigan.
It's my point of view. You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum was not recorded in front of a live studio audience.
This has been a long time coming, Mr. Gaffigan.
Right?
I mean, yeah, we both had that show on TV Land with very similar outcomes. Yeah. You left the show and I got canceled. So similar.
Well, I don't even know what is. Yeah, that was TV Land was going to. I mean, it was kind of like before they thought that. It's like when Viacom thought they had a shot, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh my God.
They were in complete denial. They're like, we're Viacom. We had Nickelodeon and MTV. We can do anything. And then
yeah, it didn't work out. I remember they called me and they said, hey, we like your show. It's not right for us. And I'm like, what's the end of this? We just finished our second season. You just figuring that out now? All right. Okay. Well, that's the way it rolls.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, we're in a very, I mean, I don't want to sound naive, but I feel like television or traditional television, cable or whatever, is in a weird place now too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about the power that AMC had.
Oh yeah. They were pushing out really quality shows, and they were the Walking Dead and they were like the HBO of yesteryear.
Yeah. Mad Men, they had that they just everything they touched was gold. And now it's like, but I don't know. Now I feel like this. I really wish I understood it, but I'm not that interested. I just want to act. So yeah. I'm kind of like, just when can I do that?
Well, you do that too much, I think. I'm looking at your stuff and I'm just like, holy, it's just like, I remember I was telling your publicist that I remember we were doing like Carson Daly 15 years ago, and you were doing stand-up and I was a guest, and I remember saying to you, I go, is anyone watching? And you're like, well, yeah, maybe.
And by the way, if one of those late night if today's late night shows had the ratings that Carson had then,
yeah, they'd be huge now.
Yeah,
because there's so many streaming platforms, and it's great but to me, it's like I go to a restaurant. Tell me how you feel about this. I go to a restaurant and I like chicken steak. I don't want tons of stuff like like the old, what's the deli, the famous deli, not Greenblatt's, where the bowling alley was in Studio City, Jerry's Deli. But they had this huge menu and it just confused me. And so I feel like somebody's like, have you seen this show? I'm like, no. Have you seen this show? It's on Tulu. Tulu? What the hell's Tulu? Yeah. I don't know what to watch.
There is. I mean, this might not be interesting, but we are obviously paying for Apple Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have it on our screens, but like when I travel, I'm watching things on my iPad. I don't have Apple TV on my iPad. So when I watch shows, like I loved Fleischman's in Trouble, which is on some streaming platform that I have, but like I don't have Apple TV on my iPad, so I haven't seen Severance.
I haven't either.
And I haven't downloaded, and I haven't done the Paramount Plus. So like there's certain things I haven't seen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a lot of things. So it's probably good for actors because there's more shows out there to audition for. But then you can start thinking, well, what's the platform I have the best chance of actually being seen on?
Well, and by the way, which brings us back to the TV Land thing. The problem with TV Land is at that point, I remember encountering this. People were like, I've never watched TV Land, so I'm never going to go and find that channel.
Right.
Whereas it used to be, I think there was somebody that said that the reason that Today's Show was so successful initially is because people had watched The Tonight Show. and they turned off their TV. And when they turned it back on, it was on NBC. And so they were watching the Today Show.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
So like habit is a really important thing.
Do you like it? Do you like all these options? Do you like all these streaming? How do you feel about it?
No, I think I did a tweet where I was like, they should gather all of the streaming platforms together and call them cable. You know what I mean? It's just because there's so many.
I usually go, I hear about something and I go, oh, I have to. So I subscribe, I watch the show, and then I cancel.
That's smart.
That's the only thing I want to watch. It cost me $9.99. Look, you know what's crazy about this? I've known you for a long time. I think we've known each other. We've been in the same circle. I love Michael Ian Black. You put him in all your things. And we're mutual friends with Jason Patric. He's a very close friend of mine, which I'll talk in a minute. But I started like, why? Because everybody I think knows you for the most part as being this hugely successful author and stand-up comedian. You know, that's what, funny guy. He's this. And I started going through shit, and my engineer here, Ryan, and I was just like, and I watched Linoleum. And my jaw dropped. I'm like, he goes, maybe this is why they always say comedians are the best actors, dramatic actors. Because I watched the trailer, which I now have to see of Being Frank, which looks hilarious. But like Linoleum, I don't even recognize you. And it took me forever to go, is he playing that guy too? No, he's got a different voice. He looks completely different. I was baffled by it.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yes.
Well, this is the perception industry, right? And so and I'm sure that like you were forever trying to like not be Lex Luthor, right? So the perception thing is there is so like, look, I like stand-up comedy. I mean, I love stand-up comedy. I love comedy and all that, but like for me, it's about what's creatively fulfilling. And so the more complex a role, usually in an indie, usually in a drama, is more fulfilling acting. And so I'd rather do that than, I'd have fun on working on a comedy, but it's not as fulfilling probably as playing, a guy who believes in snake healing. I did this movie, Them That Follow, that, like that's, like there's kind of the minutia of dramatic roles that are, it's more fulfilling, I think.
Yeah.
Comedy's fun, but like, and maybe because I get to do stand up that I don't feel the need to kind of go into that thing. But it's, so I'm perceived as a comedian, and then whenever I do a movie and then there's press afterwards, it's always like people don't realize that I've been doing dramas for a while because none of them are that successful. So it's like, but it's all right. It's, there's got to be a narrative to everything.
Yeah,
right?
I think they do. I said to Ryan, I said, there's no doubt I could totally see you getting nominated for an Oscar sometime. I just genuinely, not because I'm not blowing smoke. It's just because I just don't, when people see it, it's like you're just so different, which is great. The juxtaposition of seeing you doing comedy and being the funny guy and very personal, and then playing this quirky character from a little place in Ohio. And, and look, Linoleum is screening right now at the Palm Springs International Fest. It was in South by Southwest. It's won awards. Tony Shalhoub, the whole cast is great. It's just weird. I was talking to your publicist again. I was like, it's touching, it's mysterious, it's thought provoking. At the end, it brought me to tears for some reason because I don't want to say anything, but like the old man with the, I don't want to give it away, but like just the whole thing, and then putting it together, I was like, did I get this right? Is this what my interpretation was? And she's like, yeah, that's right. And I gave myself a pat on the back, but it deals with issues of identity and memory and achievement, but deals with hope, as sad as it can be at times. Yeah. And I really, and I watched it this morning, dude, and getting me to watch anything.
Yeah.
I'm fucking like, so I was like, I really urge people to go see Linoleum when it comes out in selected theaters and whenever. Do you have any idea when that's going to be? Or right now, we'll just post that shit.
I think it's in end of February.
Right.
But it's Linoleum is unique in other things that from other things that I've worked with, that it is one of those movies that, like, the last 10 minutes, people often cry because it's like you're caught off guard, but also it's one of, creative people. We love discussing, and you don't want to agree with everyone, but like, it's great because it's one of those movies that presents questions, and people take different things. Some people say it's about ambition. Some people say it's about memory. Some people say, I think it's like a love story. I think it's like, we go through life, and particularly creative people, I think we're like, we're caught in like, okay, if I can just get this job, if I can achieve this thing. And, and you and I, we both had some success, and eventually you have to kind of evaluate what is the measure of success. Is it creative fulfillment? Is it, obviously it's human relationships. You know what I mean? Like, so like if you're in a successful relationship, and it doesn't even matter if that relationship ends, like that's in some ways, that's pretty fantastic, right? Like the ups and downs and the grief of that relationship is really a major accomplishment. I don't know. It's weird because you don't want to give anything away.
Right.
But people have different takeaways, and some people think it's about, parental and kid relationships and what our parents expect from us. But I love how the character of Cameron, he has this dream that is, really for like actors and creative people. He wants to be an astronaut, but like wanting to be an actor or a comedian is not that far off from being an astronaut. Like, people think you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to be an astronaut. Saying I want to be an actor. Are you from Indiana?
I was gonna say you're from India. Yeah, you grew up you were born in Illinois. You grew up in Indiana. I grew up in Indiana from the ages of 8 on. So yes, and I always used to watch. I never was able to go out. I wasn't popular, so I used to watch SNL, and I used to memorize all the sketches and share them with my family. So I know that's what you did growing up in Indiana too.
Yeah, and so like, if you're from, if you're in Indiana, and it's changed, but like when I was growing up, if I told people I wanted to be an actor, be like, are you out of your mind?
Oh yeah.
It would be the equivalent of saying, I want to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
So, but I love movies that that leave you with some questions. You know what I mean? And I loved acting in, a movie where you don't want to tip anything. You don't want, how, you read the script, but you're like, we want to play long ball. You know what I mean? And it was so great working with Ray Seahorn, because we knew where it was going, but we also, out of respect for their relationship, we didn't want, even though they're going through a relationship crisis, we didn't want it to be where they, like the comedic thing would just be like, they hate each other, but they don't. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's
always playing the opposite. It's always playing against that. Like they always say, if you have to cry in the scene. Well, as humans, we try to do everything we can not to cry.
Yeah.
So it's not tipping the hat. You're exactly right. It's far more interesting and believable, and there's a better payoff when you don't. And that's also hard. It's got to be, the actors have to know that, but also the direction. Colin West, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I really want people to see Linoleum because and not only just see you, I really thought like the casting, everything from the daughter to the boyfriend to the the other character that you play to the old man. In a way, I think he steals the show without almost saying anything. His eyes.
Yeah.
Those eyes are just, I want to cry every time I look at him. It's just this sweet man and this history of what he wanted in life and the things that he loved and his memory. And we're giving it away, God. We're tipping our hats.
No, well, it's like also, how about Tony Shalhoub?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Tony Shalhoub. It's like when you see him in the first scene and then the second scene, you're like, oh my God. And that's where, I mean, I'm sure, as an actor, like there's these people you work with, and I did this indie. There's so many moments where I think, all right, I'm going to break through. Like there's going to be this conveyor belt. I'll get led into this room and I'll just be handed acting roles. And this was like 2004. And I did this movie with Tony where he played a work psychiatrist. And he was so amazing. And I remember thinking, oh man, if I could work with people like Tony Shalhoub again. But like, I don't know if you've ever worked with him.
No.
But he's one of those, like when he does this
yes,
kind of thing,
and you're uncomfortable. Yeah.
He thinks of every single moment.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things. But sometimes life gets you bogged down and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up in the way you want to. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you. Because when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take on everything life throws at you. And who couldn't use a few better coping skills to be able to handle all of life's curveballs? Look, if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist anytime for no additional charge. BetterHelp can help you be the best you possible. Try it today. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/inside today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/inside. Inside of You is brought to you by neurohacker Qualia. Guys, I've been using this for months. And what's funny is I didn't know they were a sponsor. I hadn't read any spots yet. And I was like, I guess I ordered this stuff called Qualia, neurohacker. And it was from my mind. And it was like, I need more focus. I need brain fuel. And lo and behold, our sponsor, Neurohacker, combines 28 of some of the most research-backed nootropic ingredients on Earth into an ultimate brain fuel formula, Qualia Mind. It's been changing people's lives for years now, Ryan. I have noticed that I'm in a better space. I wish that you could see me in the mornings, Ryan, because this is part of my routine. Without a doubt, you walk in there, you're going to see Qualia. And I don't like taking a lot of vitamins and things, but I'm like convinced this works. Now I'm not taking it. I have to take this now. And because I really think I'm feeling it. It's amazing. I notice the difference in just days. Focus, my mood, my willpower. I strongly suggest this. I'm getting things done. I am writing more for hours on end, going, oh my gosh, I got my podcast in half an hour. I got to stop writing. It's one thing to another. The formula is non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring in each ingredient's effect on mental clarity. Ryan, I get asked to advertise a lot of products, and I think that the proof of experiencing something directly moves it right to the top of the list for me. It just makes it easier to talk about. I love when I know what I'm talking about because I can feel it.
It's also backed by a 100-day money-back guarantee, so you have almost 3 months to try Neurohacker's Qualia Mind at no financial risk and decide for yourself.
If you deal with brain fog like me, memory lapses, sluggish thinking, try Neurohacker's Qualia Mind. See what one of the best brain fuel formulas on earth can do for your mindset. Go to neurohacker.com/IOU for $100 off. That's only $39 a bottle. And as a listener of Inside of You, use code IOU at checkout for an extra 15% off your first purchase. That's neurohacker.com/IOU to try Neurohacker's Qualia Mind with code IOU to experience life-changing performance. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The products and statements are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. And you didn't play that over the top. Like I was waiting for you to push it too much. Like it could become really comedic, but he's like reaching his finger to you and you're a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to be touched without saying it. It was just enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fun, but I want an opportunity to do more types of roles like Linoleum.
Yeah.
Like I want to, I don't, it's like we've also kicked around for a while. I love the fact that when we had those shows on TV Land, when it was so important for me to have an opportunity to be the executive producer, and my wife and I wrote all these things. It was so important for me to have that experience because now I know exactly when you're like an EP and you have to deal with some of the headaches. It's so important to be that good soldier, to be the person that you want to, because as you know, in the acting world, there's people that are like good people, but they're a pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like our friends, we have friends that we like, every time you work with them, you're like, really, this is how you're going to behave? Do you know what I mean? And so like, you want to be the partner. I describe it as the good soldier.
Absolutely.
The one that pitches an idea, comes with ideas, but like, if they don't take the idea, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like you're it's like these film sets are like you're on a kibbutz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to be on the kibbutz.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe because I can do the stand-up where I have absolute control over everything, that I do relish these opportunities to be on the kibbutz.
Yeah, and there's more of a respect, I think, too, when you become, I think it's learned. It's not something that you just are born with. I think through experience, you realize people want to be around people that are malleable, that are just cooperative, that will listen to other ideas, that aren't so egocentric. And I think there's a lot that that comes with that. But I've definitely learned, like, being an EP means it's not about just your idea. You have got to listen to other people's ideas and sometimes give in and not be a pain in the ass and sort of know when to say, I want to get into a little bit of your life, because we talk a lot about mental health on this show and like dealing with life and death and anxiety and depression and things that I've dealt with and other guests have dealt with. And but before that, Jason Patric, who we all love, great actor. When I said, you worked with Jim, give me something.
Yeah.
And he said, when we did that championship season on Broadway that his late father, Jason Miller, wrote, you and Jason had a pre-show routine. Ask him what it was.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, it was to take, Jason Patric, let me set this up to people that don't know. All right, so I'm in my 50s. Are you in your 50s?
50, yeah.
Yeah. There is something about, there's a last vestige of guys in their 50s, and let me see if I can articulate this, that are liberal, open-minded, but they also have kind of this they have the last remnants of the Rat Pack and of like guyish stuff and kind of but we, you have to understand that championship season, which was my first play, Not even my first Broadway play. It was my first play.
Christ.
That and it was a play that I had read. I was pretty much self-educated. I studied finance in college, and then I graduated, and I essentially started to read. I mean, I had a minor in English, but I educated myself on theater, and I studied Meisner and all that. And I love that championship season, and it really is this analysis of masculinity and the 70s and kind of race and kind of, I mean, it's a really important play.
Yeah.
And it was, but our ritual, to answer the question, is before we would do the play, we would have a shot of Jameson, which is such a Jason Patric thing. And I remember thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But like, if you've seen the play or you read the play, there is like this, there's this, and like it's been confused because there's a toxic masculinity that we're dealing with today. But there is also something about this masculine, because by the way, in that play was Jason Patric, Kiefer Sutherland, Brian Cox,
Jesus,
Chris Noth, and me. So I was the biggest pussy of all of them. And by the way, I was a college athlete. You know what I mean? So it's like, and these guys had all achieved incredible success. Now, I would say that Brian Cox is probably more famous now,
yes,
than he was then. But he was, I think he had won an Olivier Award by the time.
Well regarded.
Yeah. And so it was so interesting because there was 5 egos, an incredible play. The playwright's son was in the play.
Yeah,
it was on Broadway, and when we would go out and we would start the play, you have to understand this is after 24 was, so like 24 was still in people's memory, and Kiefer Sutherland was the biggest star. It was
packed crowds.
Yeah, packed crowds. It was also when Chris Noth, Mr. Big, was still, I mean, gigantic. And I would say after every single play, every single night, we went out for a drink. And often it would end up being a mess. So we drank like we were in college. We drank like those guys drank in the play every night. So some of it is like anyone, I mean, it's great, but it's also one of those things where people may not realize this. It's like, actors find the character within themselves, but there's a morphing into, you become some of that character, and the community becomes that character, becomes their characters. And it was it was so interesting because there's also something of, I don't think that, it was the beginning, it was, I guess, 11 years ago, because I have a son, because my wife was pregnant and came to every performance too. During that, when it was the beginning of, there's been different ways of political correctness, but like there is like the N-word said in this play, all these things, but like the audience was fine with it. But the critical, even though this play had won the Pulitzer Prize, it was shocking. So it was shocking in that people couldn't get beyond some of the language. And so we were so knee deep in it, in understanding that this was the language that was used in small town Pennsylvania, the anti-Semitic references. It was used. It was much more of a reflection of their insecurities than being portraying them as racist or anti-Semitic. But I think that the audience today would not be able to separate that.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So
I do.
It's really interesting, and it was so fascinating because you think of like the stardom that these guys had tasted.
Oh yeah.
And the stardom and the fame that brought people to the show. I think that it was almost a disservice to the play.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I understand that. I know, he was very close, obviously, because his father had written it, and, it was an award-winning play, and it was just like, there were expectations. And of course, when those expectations aren't met, it's sort of like anything less than, considered a failure. But I think that it was great, as from what I heard, and it was just short-lived. This podcast is brought to you by Dove Men Plus Care. Guys, do you get distracted during the day thinking about your underarms sweating or itching or emitting an odor? Oh. Do those thoughts keep you from showing care when it counts? New and improved Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant with 72-hour sweat and odor protection and 1/4 moisturizing cream helps you forget about your underarms so you can be present for the moments that matter. Don't let underarm insecurities keep you at arm's distance from the ones you care about. Buy new and improved Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant wherever personal care products are sold. This message is sponsored by Discover. Did you know you could reduce the number of unwanted calls and emails with online privacy protection? The latest innovation from Discover. Discover will help regularly remove your personal info, like your name and address, from 10 popular people search websites that could sell your data. And they'll do it for free. Activate in the Discover app. See terms and learn more at discover.com/online privacy protection. Jason also said briefly that you and your wife, Jeannie, were 2 of the biggest supporters in winning his son Gus back. You headlined a stand-up for Gus event that raised awareness and really started the movement to get his son back. Deep spiritual support, and that they love Gus and that he loves you. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. No, it is. There's so many, parental alienation. And by the way, at that benefit, there were a lot of people there of different, there's people that, they get divorced and they enter a same-sex relationship, and the other parent is like, then you're out. You know what I mean? It's the parental alienation thing. It mainly affects fathers, but it can affect everyone, right? And it is to witness your friend going through this and to see the cruelty of it.
Oh my God.
Is pretty staggering. So Jason is really and his relationship with his son is a miracle. But it's like it's a crisis unlike being the victim of war or like a physical assault.
Yeah,
it's devastating.
He pretty much lost everything to get his son back. He gambled everything and gave away it all for his son.
Yes. Yes. And by the way, the Jason I know today versus the Jason then. When we say he gave up everything, it's not just monetary. Jason Patric was the type of person who, if he was working on a project and he didn't believe in the art of it, he would bail. And now he's in a position where he's working on projects that he would probably yell at someone for pitching the idea to.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But that is the journey. And I think that is actually the beauty of the humility of being a parent, is that you go through hell. Jason went through a different type of hell, but you go through a process that and I understand why people don't have kids. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's, it's also, but like, look, why go into a relationship? Why fall in love when someone's going to get their feelings hurt? People are going to die. It's like, but you gotta live a full, rich life.
Yeah, that's true. I'm still working on that. I'm still single. I live alone. I have a dog. Jim, I'll figure it out. But this is not about me.
Yeah.
It's about you.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. What was childhood like for you? I mean, did you come from a good family? Were you happy as a kid? I know that at 5 you said I want to be an actor, but what was it like growing up as a little Jim?
It was, I mean, I can tell, the long story, the short story, you know what I mean? I was the youngest of 6 kids. My father was the first one in his family to go to college. We were many generations, coal miners, I would say alcoholism and depressions kind of littered throughout my family. But I was raised to seek security, and security was wearing a coat and tie to work. And so I was a pretty compliant kid. Like, I thought, okay, I'll do that. This is what you're supposed to do. I'll study finance. And I hated it.
Right.
But I thought once I got paid, I'll like it. And then, so I think that I was, I played sports, but I think I did it because my brothers did it. You know what I mean? I think that I really didn't kind of figure out or ask myself what I wanted to be until my very early 20s. I had a job as a litigation consultant in Tampa. And I remember I had a little because I had written an episode of Miami Vice. I was
really,
I didn't sell it or anything, but I wrote it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there.
And so but I always had dreams. But I didn't know, even when I was 5, I didn't know anyone in the entertainment industry. Like, in my town, there was, the marching band, but I didn't know, you were in Indy, right?
I was in a small town in southern Indiana, Newburgh near Evansville, which was borderline almost Henderson, Kentucky.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah,
yes. That's down there.
Yeah.
And so I always thought, because there was no newscaster. Northwest Indiana is very much the stepchild to Chicago. And Indiana in itself has a very strange identity, as you know. And so, but I think all those things made me who I am. You know what I mean? I was born in Illinois, moved to kind of Rust Belt, Indiana, then eventually moved to kind of more on the edge of Rust Belt and farmland. So there is something where I feel familiar in white suburbs, kind of ethnic Rust Belt and farmland things.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I wanted to be a farmer.
Wow. Were you popular? Were you?
I think that middle school was a disaster. We had moved.
Right.
And it was, but high school, I went to a very small high school. So I got very lucky. But I played sports. I was a decent athlete, but incredible anxiety. I now know, because I have kids now, definitely some huge anxiety, some undiagnosed learning disabilities, but an incredible drive. I was also kind of a goofy looking kid. I was the whitest kid in an all white community, nothing compared to the African-American experience, obviously, but I was definitely an outsider. I was always an outsider.
Yeah. What kind of anxiety? How was it? Just could you not function? Was it hard? Was it just always present?
It was in middle school. If I talked in middle school, I would blush and turn bright red enough where the teacher would point it out and say, I remember I had a teacher point it out and she goes, see how his face is red? In anyone else, that would be an indication that he is sick or having a seizure.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it was, there was definitely some bullying that happened from kids or adults. But I think I also that's when I kind of latched onto comedy, was when we moved. But I had an older brother who was pretty good at sports. So I kind of hung in on sports. But I would say, the reason I started doing stand-up, when I moved to New York, I got a job in advertising as an account guy. And the guy who, and in those settings, I would get really nervous and flustered when I would speak. And so someone suggested I take improv. And so I took improv to deal with some of this public speaking anxiety. And then someone dared me to do stand-up. I always wanted to do it. But again, I didn't know anyone that did it. And I didn't think it was a realistic thing. And so then when I finally, then I took kind of like a stand-up seminar. It was just, and I fell in love with it. But I had stage fright issues, I would say, for the first 10 years of my career. Terrified.
I know what that's like. Is it something that you eventually got on pills to help you, meds, or was it something that you just eventually grew out of and just forced your way out of anxiety, or how did you do it?
I think some of it was, I think some of it was just sheer experience of forcing myself to go on stage. But I think some of it was I grew out of it. I don't think that, I think it would have helped if I had medication. It would have helped a lot. But, and then I think I did a lot of, therapy. I was in group therapy in my 20s, and I did some work on my stuff. My mother died in my early 20s. So that's really what prompted me to not just be compliant and do what I was told to do.
Right.
Is when she died, the injustice of her death, she was 53. I was like, well, then, I don't know what I'm, supposed to do. So that's when I started, I did the improv class. Then I started doing stand-up, and I would do stand-up. And then I did acting classes after work and stand-up after that. And that was and I did that for 4 or 5 years. I mean, I kept my day job for a long time, but I definitely resigned myself to be the uncle that lives in a tiny apartment, because I had no success whatsoever. I thought that I was good, but all my peers, all my friends were getting sets on Conan or Letterman, and I was not. They would just leave the room when I would go on, because they had seen me when I was really bad. So they were like, he's not good. So
did you want to quit? Were there moments you wanted to quit?
I didn't want to quit. I had to come to the realization that I was not going to have a normal success. I was not going to have monetary success, but I was going to, or acknowledgement of my peer group. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to be this weird guy who does stand up. I would do stand up at poetry readings and stuff like that. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a day job, and I'm going to do stand up at night. That's not the end of the world. And so, once I became comfortable with, I was like, and it's weird because I feel like when I got to, like the big lie, like there's so many moments in my career where I feel like it's that scene in The Wizard of Oz where I think, you see behind the curtain and it's like, oh, this is bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, so like when I finally got on Letterman, and being a guy from Indiana, it was a huge deal. He was a big influence comedically that I remember, and my brother was there. And I remember thinking, well, what do I do now? Like, it wasn't like all this ambition. And then I adjusted in learning that it was about fulfillment, but then I didn't have anything else in my life. Right. And so the ambition so there's always, that's even kind of goes, so like that lesson of seeking creative fulfillment, as corny as it sounds, is really an important thing for me. So even when I'm working on an indie that, like when we were doing Linoleum, we don't even know if we were going to be able to finish it. But I was like, it's fun to play this character, right? That's more fulfilling than being in a big, broad comedy where it's fun to do it, but it's not that fulfilling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you like to be challenged. You like to be in the moment. Yeah. You like to, it just sounds like, I've asked this question, but like some people, when I ask them, do you just love acting? What would you do without acting? And they're like, oh, no, that's all I want to do. That's all I love. And some people want to do it because they want fame, or they just do it for money. And I obviously, watching you could see that you do it because you are already making a lot of money. And you were still doing these little indie movies, and still are, because you love the craft. You love pushing yourself. And especially, so that's what I see.
Yeah. And by the way, there is something, and actors there's something about, I remember making fun, because I've always done indies, and, or I've aspired to get in them. And I remember the first couple ones I worked on, there were these guys, a man and a woman, and they would talk about, they're like, the big thing is like, they're like, I just wanted to do community theater. That's all I wanted to do was community. And I'm like, I don't want to be dishonest here. It's like, some of it is I have a family, so I can't really do community theater. But like, I also like that indies, there's a beginning and an end. Do you know what I mean? Like, I love, I love doing interesting roles, but I also, I like the fact that this is Linoleum's went to South by Southwest, and I've had other films at Sundance. I'm not, like, there is some ego in that, but like some of it is, there is something about the fulfillment of a role. But I'm not saying like, what, I just need to be in, Michigan doing Shakespeare. Like, I'm not saying that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know. I want to be honest.
Yeah, I say the same thing. I say, look, I want to do this. And how much are they paying me? I'd like to know how much they're paying me. Is there money involved? Can we make, I'd like to pay for my home, my mortgage, my mother,
right?
For Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Have you ever, how do you deal with rejection? What's the lowest you've been? Or you remember a time period where you hit the lowest, and how did you deal with that?
Oh my gosh. There's been, I've had some pretty humiliating moments. Rejection is, there's so much rejection in the entertainment industry. It's, you either develop calluses, or, there is a psychological impact that I think that people might not realize. Like, I have a good friend of mine who passed away, and he went to an Ivy League school. He went to an Ivy League law school. He got a scholarship to a special high school. He was a home run hitter. And he did stand up, and he had a TV show, and he had all this success. But the reality is with all that success that he had through his life, the amount of rejection that he dealt with after, like the show was canceled, the agent dumped him, all this stuff. I don't think he could process it. And he eventually got into drugs and he died. And the reason I bring that up is that, it's not an appetite for failure or humiliation, but you have to have, it's a pretty tall task. These creative people that are paid to take things personally, to respond emotionally and authentically, they also have to process all this humiliation. So when someone, like Kanye West is a bad example, but when some actor loses their shit, I'm like, yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean? But so it's that maturity of dealing with loss and disappointment that makes someone exceptional. Like Tom Hanks seems like a pretty amazing guy, but there's also how he's processed the humiliation we haven't seen is really impressive, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I would say the lowest point, I mean, I remember there was a point where, so in the comedy club world, again, this is when I was like, all my friends were, getting on Conan, getting these measuring points that seem to exist in the stand-up world. And I was getting nothing. And I was not working at at the preeminent club because I was a low energy kind of observational guy that like did not kind of stylistically, the irreverence wasn't appealing. It wasn't working at 1 a.m.
Right.
So I worked at this club. I think it's gone, Dangerfields.
Yeah.
And I would do a half-hour set, and it was brutal. It was a total tourist trap. They used to just get people in there. They'd overcharge them, and people would be angry. And so it would be, sometimes you'd be performing for 10 people in this huge room. And it's kind of hard to understand now, but so like sometimes the audience would be angry. So you deal with these hecklers. And so I dealt with this heckler, and it was probably a party of 5. And I was doing commercials, but I was, again, stand-up and acting. I wasn't getting real acting roles when I wasn't getting stand-up. And I dealt with these hecklers. The waiters were rude. The bartender was nice, but there was just this one waiter that was kind of a jerk. And I dealt with these hecklers, and they walked out. And then I got off stage, and the waiter's like, they walked out on their check. You have to pay their check. And I was kind of in like, so then I had to pay for these people that were total jerks to me. I had to pay for their tab. And I remember thinking, this is like a level of humiliation that, I mean, it was on top of all this other stuff that had been, just, I couldn't get an agent. I was making this agency tons of money in commercials, but I couldn't get an agent. And I didn't know that I could have left and gone to another agency and said, hey, I want to get, some of it is, but it just looked very dark. And I was like, what am I doing? And I remember that was a pretty low point when I was just taking the subway home. It was just humiliation. Like I'm literally losing money after doing this for 8 years. You know what I mean? So yeah. There was definitely those low points.
You could have easily walked away. A lot of people would have said, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to like think about my dad. I'm going to get a suit and tie. I'm going to go get a job. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to suffer. I remember those walks too. I remember those walks thinking, remember this walk, while you're walking and you're just staring at a light for 5 minutes and you're just like not really there, but you're there. It's almost this numbing feeling of, what am I doing? What am I going to do? It's scary. I don't, it's,
Yeah. We know like insanity is repeatedly doing something and expecting a different outcome.
Right.
Right.
Like you're doing that
faced with the reality of, oh, I'm insane. So that was, everyone in my family thought I was crazy, but like, I was like, now I'm like, oh, I am crazy. You know what I mean? And it was also, I was very driven. It was not, I was kind of, you work hard, you get results. None of that was shown. And by the way, that is not, understanding the entertainment industry is really a pointless adventure, right? Because it's fluid, like even like when Kanye says these horrible things about the entertainment industry, it's like, there's no grand conspiracy. Do you know what I mean? It's just unfair. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just people there's no one out to get anyone. You know what I mean? It's like, come on.
Yeah. When was the moment you said, holy shit? Was it the Letterman, finally being on Letterman? Was it, your first special? Was it your first book? What was that moment where you thought, you fucking did it, Jim? You fucking went against the grain. You did it your own way. Here you are. And you said, hey, and you could appreciate what you had done and really kind of just said, nice job.
There was a couple moments. Letterman was like, I remember thinking, okay, I can, because in that era, and as an actor or a comedian, when you would tell people you're an actor or a comedian, they'd be like, have you been on anything? And if you had nothing to say, they would look at you like, oh. And so I knew once I did Letterman, I had won that argument. Yeah. So I was a real comedian. That was a measuring stick. There was my personal measuring stick and the measuring stick that I encountered. Like people used to be like, you should go on the Tonight Show. It's like, it's not like I haven't thought of this, right? But I would say that there's moments where, I'm sure it's the same for you. Like there's moments where whenever you think you got to figure it out, you don't. You know what I mean? But I would say that there are moments where I'm like, oh, wow, this is nice. Like for me, I felt like, I even feel like when Dave Attell told me he thought I was funny, like that's a huge thing.
That was a long time ago too, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then like doing Dr. Katz, I was like, oh, that's actually a show I want to watch.
Yeah.
But I think there was also, when I was, it's so funny because like I was doing stand-up and I had different managers and, like there's no rules for like managing a career. I remember I was talking to Ed Helms about this. He's like, there's no internship on how to deal with like, oh, you're, and it's not about money. It's about like, oh, here's what you should do. Because there's no one's had the exact same experience, but there's a moment where I remember I was touring doing stand-up. Again, I had a lot of, I had done Welcome to New York. I had done the Ellen Show. I had, like the acting, the sitcom acting thing it's weird because like again, it's like what happens in my life. I feel like this is a therapy session. What happens in what happens in my life is I have to learn things over and over again. And so one of the things I constantly fall into the trap of is getting caught up in other people's expectations.
Yeah.
So in my parents' expectations, nothing malicious, but they're like, success is wearing a coat and tie. So I spent up until my 20s, success is wearing a coat and tie. I'm going to do that. I'm going to wear a coat and tie. That's how you get happy, right? And so the whole thing is when I did Letterman, and then I got Welcome to New York, and then I got on Ellen, the Ellen second show, I was doing the sitcom route. And then I was on that 70s show and Ed, I reoccurred on Ed. And I remember thinking, like, even, you know, that 70s show was so big at the time, but I remember thinking, well, this isn't that fun. Like I've had, like, you know, hear me out. So it's like the 4-camera sitcom experience was not that fun from an acting. Like I had other acting experiences in indies or in other things where I was like, why is the acting on sitcoms, why isn't that as fun as the other thing? But so then I was like, oh, it's television. I don't want to do television. So then I was like, I'm not doing television. And so then I did that championship season. And I thought I learned, and some of it was Kiefer was like, you need to be in charge of your own show. That's the thing. And so then my wife and I did the Jim Gaffigan show, and it was great. It's a lot of work, like an enormous amount of work. And so I said, all right, what I like is acting, but I like dealing with complex characters where I like being part of a team. I don't want to be in charge of the team. I want to, you know, like the whole director or executive producer thing. That's a lot. I mean, I don't have the energy for that.
Yeah.
And so, but I like being a partner. And so I eventually learned, oh yeah, it's these indies, the films, they have a beginning and an end. There's a collaborative thing. You know, the smaller they are, the more community it is, you know what I mean? And that you're all kind of there for the right reasons. And so, but like other people's expectations, that's where I fall down. It's like, oh yeah, you know, you should want to be in a Marvel movie. I'm like, should I? Maybe I should. Do I want to be in a Marvel? And by the way, I don't have anything against those movies, but I do know that doing Linoleum or American Dreamer or some of these other indies, it is fun. You know what I mean?
I think because it's more challenging.
I don't even know how I started on this.
It's all right. We'll cut it all out. No, I'm kidding. It was great. It makes perfect sense. Listen, this is called Shit Talking with Jim Gaffigan. These are my top tier patrons that get to ask. It's rapid fire. You just answer the questions. You have a lot of insight. I like this. It's digging in, kind of seeing what makes you tick and how I like the journey. I love this shit. This is what the listeners like. Miss Kayla Sue, what has been your biggest help balancing a successful career, marriage, and 5 kids, and being a producing partner with your wife, which most people would probably be divorced if they were producing and writing partners?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is that, you know, the joke is that I do it very poorly, but I would say that it's a constant evaluation, and it's, you know, it's like you also have to understand, it's like my wife is my writing partner, right? So, but like when she has a brain tumor or she's writing a book, or we're dealing with essentially 5 kids that are like teenagers, it's like, how much writing should even be the priority? You know what I mean? Or should I, you know, relish the access that I get to it that I do? But it is, I would say the answer to that it's a constant evaluation every 3 months. I mean, it's ongoing where my wife's like, every script she reads everything that I'm going to do. And she'll be like, this is not worth it. This is not worth it. And I'll be like, all right. You know what I mean? It's a partnership, and she's usually right.
You don't seem like someone. It's always good to have someone like that in your life, whether it's a friend, your wife, someone who can say, fuck off, Jim. Someone who could say, Jim, this is not what you want to do. Jim, just be that voice of reason, because if not, we're like, again, we want to fulfill our agents' expectations and make them happy. And okay. You tend to do that. That's what we do. We want to make people happy. I don't ever see you as someone who snaps. Are you someone that can really be scary when you do snap? Can you just be like intense and be like, no, we're not doing that?
Oh yeah. No, I can be a dick.
You can be a dick.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, I mean, there's the I mean, I almost want to go back to the to the previous question, because like, here, let me answer it this way.
Okay.
What you have to understand is also, when my wife had her brain tumor, there was an expectation that I was done with touring. I was done with acting. My life, I was going to be the single father of 5 children. I wasn't going to outsource it. So when she made it through, there was, oh my gosh, I can do this, a greater appreciation for stand-up and acting. But the answer is still the same. It's still every 3 months or every project. Is this worth being away? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or that's what, like, even shows in LA, I've never done. I turned down all shows, like TV shows in LA. And, I know you've spent time in Vancouver. I did Peter Pan in Vancouver for 4 months during the pandemic, where I couldn't leave. And so but that's Disney. And my wife was like, yeah, that's Disney. You're going to do that. But would I go up there and do a show for 4 months? I don't know. I don't think I would.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Little Lisa, what's your most prized possession and why? That's a tough question. I don't know how you answer that one.
Yeah, that's really hard. Prized possession. I don't know.
I mean,
I think I just feel so grateful that that I have different creative outlets, because I love acting, but if I relied solely on acting for creative fulfillment, I would lose my mind, because you don't get to do it enough. And you're beholden to, again, it's not malicious, too many factors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, I want that role. No, you don't get it. Whereas in stand-up, I can write something, try it that night. CBS Sunday commentaries, I get a little fulfillment out of that. I get the fulfillment from that. It's nice.
When's your next tour?
I'm always touring, kind of always going on. I'm taping a special in Tampa in mid-February.
What will that air on? What
What
streaming platform will that be on?
I think Netflix. It's with going back to our initial conversation. I don't know where these streamers are. You know what I mean? It's like, this will be my 10th comedy special. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know that I would do one comedy special, but it is also really fun and rewarding, that process.
Yeah, I mean, you do all these things. It's like, you're the voice of Van Helsing in Hotel Transylvania. And like, these are cool things that I've always wanted to do. And people always, because you do a lot of voice and you write books. And is it something do you just get bored and go, I want to try something different. Oh, I'll be successful as an author. I get bored. I'm going to be, because you do so many things and you're successful at them. It's sort of like, what can't you do? Or is there something you want to do
Oh my
that you
gosh,
haven't
that's
tapped
so
in?
nice,
What would you do?
No.
What else would you want to do?
I mean, I just think that like directing that's too much. That's too much work.
It's a lot.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I did want to write a book, but I think it's, again, I don't want to get caught up in other people's expectations. I just want that creative fulfillment. I definitely would love to play a variety of different characters. You know what I mean? Like I want to, there's all these voices in my head. I want them to have life.
And they will. They will. They absolutely will. Look, we're going to finish this, but a few years ago, you were the most popular comic on Pandora with 647 million spins. I don't even know how that's possible, dude. It's remarkable. And you have millions of followers. You were the 25 funniest people on Twitter. You're like one of the top comics every year. You're hilarious. You stick to your guns. You do, a lot of people will go to dirty comedy and very, you stick to what you do and you don't stray. And that to me is incredible on its own, because even back then when things weren't going the way you wanted, I'm sure you thought, well, maybe I need a few more F-bombs in here,
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, authenticity, personal authenticity, it takes a while for people to, know themselves. You know what I mean? And it's ongoing. That's what's also so amazing about stand-up is, you're learning more about yourself, and you're also, this special and this tour, I'm much more sarcastic and probably darker, than I have been. But that's what's also, I think, so fun about stand-up is the relationship you have with an audience. It is a friendship, and you have to challenge. What we love about conversations with friends is that it's never the same conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you ever on stage while you're doing a special, doing stand-up, really crack yourself up? Like, because it's routine, the routine, but does something ever get you where you just can't stop laughing?
Can't stop laughing, but there is something about, and I would say there's a lot of moments on stage, particularly when you're developing a topic or a joke, where words come out of your mouth that you didn't plan on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And some of that, it's like the audience should get a writing credit, really. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it kind of comes out. That's why, it is so fun and so rewarding. There is just lightning strike. And sometimes it's a tag, sometimes which is just like a joke, a line after a joke. But there is some kind of stuff that happens on stage. So it is written, but there's a lot of moments in that written that just came out.
Do you still get nervous?
Yeah, I think not as dramatically nervous as I used to be, but yeah, if I wasn't a little nervous, I'd be in trouble. And some of it is because I'm always working on new stuff. There's an unspoken agreement that if people are coming to a show of stand-up, that it's new material. So, right. Yeah.
Linoleum is the movie. I watched this movie at 8 this morning and freaking loved it. If you haven't seen Jim Gaffigan in a dramatic role, and he's done some dramatic roles, you're going to be just blown away by this. I really am proud of you. I'm happy for you. I love that you're doing what you do, what you love. And, you're a family man, and you've stuck to your guns, and you deserve all the success, man. So Linoleum, are you going to the Palm Springs? Is that where you're at now?
I'm here right now. Yeah.
And have you already screened it?
No, tonight.
Are you nervous?
No, we've had it at a couple festivals. People like it. It's, so it's exciting.
I love it. It's touching. It's mysterious, thought-provoking. You guys are going to love this. Look for it. And at Jim Gaffigan, is that your handle?
Yes.
Follow this man, watch his specials, read his books, and Linoleum is awesome. Thanks for finally coming on, man. I really had a good time with you.
I'm glad this worked out. Thank you so much.
Me too. All right, take care,
Appreciate
Jim.
it. Take care. See ya.
Bye. Well, there you go. I mean, he's been around for a while.
It's crazy how big he's gotten.
Yeah, and he doesn't do the dirty stuff.
As a comedian, I don't mean like a size as person, but yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. He's
But no, he's huge, and just by being himself, and he's garnered a following, and he's able to do these cool movies.
Yeah,
it's a cool life, I think.
It's a cool life, and he's doing it all. Mm-hmm. He's between writing and producing and acting and the comedy and having a family. He's like, you always say, how do these people navigate? How do they sort of balance? And I'm sure it's not easy at all. And I look around, I'm like, how do I even function doing one thing? But hey, I appreciate you guys listening. And again, if you want to join Patreon to support the podcast, patreon.com/inside of you. I would love if you joined, and I will respond to you eventually on there. And you'll definitely become somebody I'll know. We give shout outs to patrons. And what else? Head over to the Inside of You online store to get some awesome merch, autograph merch, ship keys, Lexmas scripts, lunch boxes, and a bunch of other cool stuff like tumblers and whatnot. I've given most of my free shit to Ryan. And so
I have enough tumblers.
Yeah, you have it. You have enough tumblers. I think you have a tumbler yeah, you do. That's really it. I just want to give the shout outs to these top tier patrons, and just want to tell you I appreciate you listening, and hopefully you'll be back next week. We're going to try and bring the great guests to you, doing my best, and hopefully you are. So here we go. Nancy D, Leah S, Sarah V, Little Lisa, Yukiko, Jill E, Brian H, Nico P, Robert B, Jason W, Sophie M, Kristen K, Raj C, Joshua
D,
Jennifer N, Stacy L, Jamal F, Janelle
B,
Mike E, Eldon Supremo, 99 more, Santiago
M,
Chad W, Leanne P, Janine R, Maya
P,
Maddie S, Belinda N, Dave H, Sheila
G,
Brad D, Ray, Harada, Tabitha T, Tom
N,
correct, Liliana
A,
correct, Talia M, Betsy
D,
Chad L, Dan N, Big Stevie
W,
Angel M, Rhiannon C, Corey K, Dev
Nexon,
Michelle A, Jeremy C, Brandy D, Camille
S,
correct, Joni B, Joey M, Eugene N,
Leah,
Corey, Heather L, Jake B, Megan T, Angel F, Mel
C,
S, Orlando
C,
correct, Caroline R, Christine S, Eric H, Shane R, Emma R, Andrew M, Zatoichi 77, Andreas N, Oracle, Karina N, Amanda R, Jen B, Kevin E, Stephanie K, Jorel, Billy S, Jammin J, Leanne J, Luna R, Cindy E, Mike F, Stone H, Miss S, Brian L, Katie B, Aaron B, Aaron R, Kendall L, House of Joe L, Meredith I, and Charlene C. Those are the top tier patrons. I can't do it without you. And we just did a live YouTube with all the patrons, and it was great. And I played music, and we talked, and they asked me questions, and that's another perk. And I have to do I have to do with my top tier patrons again soon is a Zoom with all of them.
Oh,
so sometimes they do that, and it's fun. So it's a good time. That's about it. Ryan, you got anything?
Not today. No.
No. All right.
Well,
that's it, really.
Yeah.
We had a great guest today that we interviewed. It wasn't the one that aired. Obviously, Jim Gaffigan was great.
They've all been good, honestly. All the recent ones.
Yeah, I think they're good. I just hope people tune in, even if they don't know the person or care about the person. I mean, if you hate the person, I think you should listen anyway because you might like them after.
There's one coming up that I'm looking forward to that we both got a lot out of, if you could think of.
Guy or girl?
A female person.
Rachel Lee Cook.
That was good. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot. I don't want to say it because we'll give it away. All right, we're excited. We love you from the Hollywood Hills in Hollywood, California. I am Michael Rosenbaum.
I am Ryan Diaz here at the Hollywood Hills.
We love you guys. Please be good to yourselves, and we'll see you next week.